are lost. Is that okay? There are those that are lost in the house of Israel. So the plan of God is to be able to reach out first of all to the house of Israel, salvage the house of Israel, then reach out to the Gentile nation. But the possibility of reaching out to the Gentile nation looked truncated. Why? Because God will require a Gentile to reach out to the Gentile. And at the time of that communication, wise enough and discerning enough to be able to come into partnership with God, to be able to represent God. Are you getting my point now? So it was only the Israelite that understood the covenant of God, of all the divine operations of God upon the face of the earth. Why? Because they have been a long time, their fathers worked together with God in alignment. So at this very moment, when God began to work with them, God realized that yet again they have walked in disobedience. So his intention was to come upon the face of the earth to salvage them, redeeming them out of that captivity, redeeming them out of that carnality, redeeming them out of that kind of lifestyle they are living. But nevertheless, God, in his infinite mercy upon the face of the earth, he created also the Gentiles. The Gentiles that he created, are they not also human beings? Are the Israelites a different kind of human beings made up of different components? No. We all came from Abraham. The genesis of every mankind upon the face of the earth came from Abraham. Is that not true now? So God created from the very beginning. And in his creation, right, even the Gentiles and the Jew were all part of it. The Jebusite, the Perizzite, the Amorite, the whatever you call it, and even the sons of Ishmaelite, they all come from him. So inasmuch as we may ostracize them from this commonwealth, in God in heaven, as the Father of all spirit and the Father of all flesh, they are still part of the economy of God. So in kingdom economy, everybody belongs to God. Are you getting my point now? In kingdom economy, everybody belongs to God. But in the jurisdiction of authority, not everybody is under the authority of God. So the intention of God is soul colonization. The intention of God is to be able to reach out in infiltration, to look beyond just the commonwealth of Israel, to reach out to other nations. But there is no way that God can be able to do that. Why? Because even his own people that have that covenant by default cannot represent him well. We cannot be hoping for a Muslim to represent the Lord if you, that you are a Christian, in fact born from a Christian home, in fact your father is a pastor, cannot represent God. It is through our working that God can be able to bring us to a point where other people can be able to see God through us. Then they are activated to do the same work. Are you getting what I'm saying now? If a Muslim wake up today and begin to represent God, it's because there are living witnesses within a territory, within a region that represent God that they saw. Are we in the same light? Are you understanding my journey? I want you to be able to understand the reason why Jesus spoke in parables. It's because kingdom operations are strategic and they are dispensational. And because they are dispensational and strategic, there is a way that God orchestrates everything. So there was a dispensation of conscience, the times of Abraham, that just because Abraham wake up one day and believe God, for him that was righteousness. Another dispensation came, which became the dispensation of the laws and the prophet. That anytime you don't believe in a prophet or in a law giving, you are not righteous. Another dispensation came of that of grace, which we are still upon now. In this time of this dispensation, if you don't believe in Jesus as a personality that has the right to be able to salvage you from everything that is of God and that is not of God upon the face of the earth, there is no victory for you. Failure in life in this dispensation is denying the personality of Jesus, although even if you acknowledge that God exists. Are you getting my point now? Because the people as he spoke to, it's not as if they are ignorant of who God is. They knew God. The Pharisees, the Sadducees, and every kind of religion upon the face of the earth, all are in pursuit for looking for God. But the sincere truth is that God decided to hide himself in a mystery that only through Jesus he can be revealed. In humility, men journey and they are able to encounter him. But the problem here is that only those that can humble themselves in humility can be able to assess the simplicity of the truth in that parable. So Jesus spoke the way he spoke. Not because he was speaking in ignorance. It was because according to the operations of God, It began with the Jew first, then the Gentiles. And I realized that God reached out to the Gentiles so that he can make the Jews envious. Because a time came the Jews felt that they are the only qualified people. They are the only ones that God can work with. And suddenly God reached out to Gentiles. And he reached out to those that are never qualified. Those that look simple. Those that could not become anything. And when he reached out to them and began to work, you mean God can be found among these people? Yes. Act 10:38. Cornelius was a normal Gentile. For the very first time. A man that was a Gentile, not a Jew, find himself praying and fasting and doing everything that the apostles do. How did he begin to do those things? I believe maybe one day in the street by and by, he was inspired. And maybe he heard about their story. He said, let me too challenge myself. And he began to do the same. As he was fasting and praying, he cracked in the realm of the spirit because he has obeyed a law and a principle. Now, how did he understand this parable? Because a parable was speaking unto them that men ought always to pray and not to faint. But while that parable was being spoken, Cornelius was not there. When they were speaking about that parable in Luke chapter 18, that men ought always to pray and not to faint, he was not aware. How did he now know the mystery of that parable? It then means that the communications of God are hidden in the realm of the spirit, and every desperate seeker has the right to find light to run for his life. How did Abraham encounter God? He was seeking for light. Even if you are a babalawo, you are in a shrine, you are desirous to look for truth. One day the truth will appear to you. That's what I'm saying. Although the parable was hidden, the reality of the potency is still inside of it. Just because you don't understand a truth doesn't mean that it's not the truth. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Everything that you know today that is not bringing liberation to you is still the truth. But the reason why it's not liberating you is because you have not come into a common union, a fellowship with that reality. And the day you come into it, it may not be as though you are knowing something new, but right now it's an apocalypse. And that is what happened anytime a parable is unsealed. It became an apocalypse. Men walked with Jesus upon the face of the earth and they never knew him. And as he broke the bread, suddenly their eyes was open. Why? It's an apocalypse. So that is what happened anytime a parable is unveiled. Suddenly men begin to see a light of the revelation in keeping to the parable.